My brother, Mr. President. Nice. How are you, sir? Welcome to Nairobi.
Speaking at a press conference with his counterpart from Finland after bilateral talks at State House Nairobi on Monday, President William Ruto said that Kenyans who were abducted during the recent Gen Z protests have already been reunited with their families.
All the people who disappeared who were abducted in what you said, all of them have been brought back to their families and to their homes. And I have given clarity and firm instructions that nothing of that kind of nature will happen again.
The president further adding that such abductions will not happen again under his leadership. The president adding that accountability measures were being put in place to ensure that such incidents do not occur again.
And I have given clarity and firm instructions that nothing of that kind of nature will happen again. And that it was my commitment as I became president that extrajudicial disappearances of Kenyans will not be part of what we are doing as a nation.
According to a recent report on enforced disappearances, the cases increased by 450% in 2024. Many of such cases were reported during the anti-finance bill protests. The report documented 55 cases of enforced disappearances in 2024. Meanwhile, Kenya and Finland have signed 2 agreements on the first day of President Alexander Stubbs' state visit to Kenya. The 2 memoranda of understanding on political consultations and peace mediation and conflict resolutions are aimed at strengthening ties between Kenya and Finland.
Finland and Kenya, as I noted, have had long-term.
President William Ruto said Kenya is committed to deepening bilateral cooperation with the Nordic country for the mutual benefit of citizens of the 2 nations.
Kenya deeply values its long-standing friendship with Finland, a key development partner in Europe and a steadfast supporter of our national ambitions. Finland's expertise in education, technology, renewable energy, and climate action aligns closely with Kenya's development priorities.
Joash Onsare, TV 47.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, for those interventions.
Yes, indeed. You look at the front page of the Standard this morning, it talks about a repressive regime in reference to a UN report tabled at the Council's 49th session in Geneva, that's sometime early this month, detailing dramatic surge in abductions, torture and killings of activists, medical professionals, lawyers and journalists, especially during the Gen Z-led protests against the controversial 2024 finance bill. It is also the top trend on X this morning, abductions. Curiously, the president yesterday had to answer that question, and the statement he made has left more questions than answers. He has on many occasions denied that abductions have been done by his government. Then yesterday he says all those who were abducted were released back to their families. Should we take it at face value? Allow me to welcome my panelists this morning, James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, karibu sana, and Dr. John Chikati, MP Tongaren. It's good to have you in studio.
Thank you.
Yes, gentlemen, this issue about abductions and the kind of communication this government has been giving about the same has left more questions than answers. Is this an admission by the president that yes, finally, he is agreeing that there were abductions by state agencies? Gakuya.
Thank you, Idimuri. Allow me to salute viewers wherever they were watching this morning show from. And coming to the matter abductions and whether the president has any knowledge of those who lost their lives and also those who has been kidnapped. And Idimuni, my position is that the statement made by President yesterday is clearly an indication that the head of state was aware of the whereabouts of those who had been abducted. And that's why he has a firm statement that all of them has been released and they are back to their families. It means he knew where they were. And as of now, he's confirming that they are already released back to their families. And this is a clear indication that he was aware. And this now clearly confirms that the statement made by one former minister, Muturi, was correct, that it is the head of state who made a call to the director of intelligence to release Muturi's son. And therefore it tells you he had full knowledge of what has been happening. And this puts a big question about extrajudicial killings. Was he also aware of those who lost their lives? And if he was aware, could he tell Kenyans whether he was the one who instructed their execution? This is the big question. And as he's trying to confirm to Kenyans that it will not happen again, can he tell Kenyans why did it happen in the first place? In his campaign trail, he promised Kenyans that none of that orchestration will occur in his leadership, and especially extrajudicial killing will never happen. But it happened. Why did it occur? Why did we also experience this kidnapping of what I could say, people without any single dots? Because if you have released them, it means you have no evidence of anything that they have committed. And if Kenyans of those nature that who had been kidnapped, if there was enough evidence that these young men had any evil that they have done for the country, the light of the Constitution is within 24 hours they should see the rights at the court of law, so that the court can determine. But why do you lock Kenyans for more than 2 months, 3 months from an unknown destination? It's unfair, and it's an orchestration, and it should not be done by a government of this, by a government of the people, a government elected by the people. This can only be done by a government which is a military, but not a civil government like this one.
Bwana Chikati, what do you take? What's your take on the statement by the president? Because we've been having different kind of statements from the head of state on the abductions, basically denials. Now he comes out and says, okay, fine, they've all gone to their families. Isn't that an admission?
Thank you very much. And you see, while I'm not an expert in security matters, I want to comment that the president receives reports from different arms of government on security issues. Probably at the time the president was saying he did not have that information on the kidnaps, probably he did not get proper information from the security arms, or they had not yet gathered proper information on that. The president coming up and saying yesterday that there will be no further abductions means that he has put in place mechanisms and all issues around that, so that future incidents of kidnaps do not occur. That is the way I understand. We need to give him credibility on the fact that he has said that there was a loophole, there was a gap. He has noticed, and it will not happen again. And nobody wants to give him that credit, but we also need to give him that credit. That's what I think.
Then what should happen next? Now the president admits or acknowledges that yes, indeed, there were abductions, people were killed. It's even noted by a UN report. Then what happened next? Will that happen and there be no consequence?
I think is that you can see from what the president said and from what Haji presented to Parliament that there needs to be an increase in budgetary allocation in security units. Probably that is one of the strategy. And Haji said very well that without budgetary increase, the country is exposed, both internally and externally. Probably that's what we need to understand. To beef up security internally, you need a lot of money. It's not just a question of President Ruto alone. It's not the question of putting pressure on the president every time. He needs peace of mind also to work. It is a question of Kenyans working together, really, even as politicians, the way we speak and the way we talk to the public. It is not, should not be discussions that raise political temperatures. We also have to participate in that. So all this has been bringing animosity within the country, and that is what I think. Because
there's definitely an element of criminality in this, extrajudicial killings, abductions, the admission that probably this happened within the ambit of security units. Should this go unattended? And that's the question. Probably, could there be other mechanisms to address what happened last year, especially on the issue of abductions?
Edimony, the best that the head of state should do, because already the injury is already instilled. And to clear that injury, one is to make sure that whoever did that, if it was done without his knowledge, then action should be taken against. Because if the abductions and the extrajudicial killings were done on a haphazard manner that even himself wasn't aware, then we need to see action taken to those officers who took that action. How can they go scot-free and they still remain in force and they have done a heinous action of this nature? How do you comfort the families who lost the lives of their young ones? How do you comfort them? Without taking action. First and foremost, the head of state should say, one, the government will take responsibility. Those who took that particular action should face the law. And number two, the state should compensate those families who lost their young ones. That's but saying it will stop. How sure are we it will stop? And if no action is going to be taken, how do we know whether the same officers will haphazardly get back to, because no officer should can take action without instructions. Who are those instruction givers?
There have been suggestions that probably we should adopt an independent judicial inquiry into this, so that at least we can get closure, so that the issues that Gachagua suggests, issues about compensations, reparations to families, that can be dealt with. Do you think that's a good way to go about it?
Yes, it's an open way for people to know what happened. The president himself is very open on this. But before even we reach that, there are units already set out by the government, including IPOA. The question is, are they doing their work? Okay? And then the Minister of Interior is there. The issues of compensation, the way my senior is talking, is quite correct. But then how do we arrive at that? Is, for example, IPOA doing its work. What is the assessment report from IPOA? How many people were killed? How many were kidnapped? What were the reasons behind? How many did not reach back to the families? That should inform the compensation mechanism. So are already the units which were set by the government by law doing their work. What are the gaps? Okay? Because even if you bring a commission of inquiry, these units must bring their evidence, their research on what took place. So the commission of inquiry is okay to unearth all this. I don't oppose it at all, but before we reach there, are the units of government which were established by law doing their work? Secondly, there are non-government institutions, including the the Human Rights Commission and other NGOs which are dealing with the human rights. What is their report on this, so that we can be able to compare what they have and what the government has in order to reach a consensus? Nobody wants death in Kenya. Everybody wants peace in Kenya. We must all play our role in order to avoid the situation that was there in mid last year. Yes.
At the height of the protests, of course, Parliament and parliamentarians were on the other end, on the receiving end of the protesters when they breached the precincts of Parliament. Yet Parliament too may have a role in actually taking us closer to the issues you suggest. Do you think that the National Assembly is acting a bit too reluctant to pursue this matter?
Edimuli, let us agree that, in fact, the government has a departmental committee which is assigned to such matters. And I would think that, in fact, the chair of that particular committee should have taken a stride to start investigations on the whereabouts of these young ones and the cause of these extrajudicial killings and who caused this. And at this particular moment, the parliament ought to have a report, so that that report, including any other report that the government themselves might allies with, can be able to shape a way on how to settle this problem. Otherwise, we can't leave it like that the president says now it will never happen. What about the injury that already has occurred? How do you cure that? And that one, the parliament should take its role, and then also the government should take its role. IPOA, as it is known, it seems as if it does not have teeth to bite. And if this is the case, then it is high time it should be disbanded, or else given extraordinary powers so that they can be able to bite enough. If it is not, because currently it's like whatever they does investigate still goes loud and never sees the light of the day. Then my suggestion is, if this particular agency is not doing anything enough, then what should be done is to terminate it and reconstitute or look for more teeth and give it so that it can be able to bite enough.
Yes, you see, Parliament, we all learn from our activities. There are lessons which we carry out. Last week and this week, the Parliament is carrying out public participation on anchoring NGCDF in the Constitution. In my view, probably on the issue of the finance bill, the Parliament should have done enough awareness creation, lobbying and networking for the public to understand.
You're talking about the issue of last year?
Yes, of last year. Because you've just asked the role of Parliament in all this mess. So what we need to do as we move forward is to ensure that enough awareness creation, lobbying and advocacy is done for the common person to understand that why Parliament is taking a certain decision or towards a certain direction. And I think we've started it already.
But in your role as a legislator, does it concern you that this report about the killings has made its way up to the level of the UN? A report was presented before the UN. The report was tabled at the Council's 49th session in Geneva, which was held between April 28th and May 9th this year. Now, it has gone to that level. Yet here in Kenya, there's nothing before Parliament to discuss this matter.
Kenya is within a global village. The UN, Kenya is a member of the UN, meaning that whatever we do is of concern to our neighbors and to the membership of the UN. So that is what I take. If the UN has brought any report on any misdeeds of our country, then it is upon the leadership in Kenya to take it seriously on the issue of abduction. And already the president stated yesterday that from now henceforth, there will be no further abductions in the country, meaning mechanisms have been put in place to stop.
I'm more concerned that we seem to be treating this in a very casual manner. The issue that we've not had any comprehensive statement from the government. In fact, the president's statements have been, the first time was at a rally in Homa Bay, second time answering a question while hosting visiting dignitary. No official statement from the government, no official report before the National Assembly. Are you concerned that we are taking this a little bit too casually?
Idimuli, my finger will just point to the committee concerned, because with this kind of magnitude nature of action, where Kenya has lost a serious number of young ones, abductions, I don't expect that, in fact, such a committee should have muted to date. They ought to have already done their investigations, calling all those agencies that are aligned and make sure that actually they give Kenyans a comprehensive report. And that's the work of the parliament. Otherwise, the parliament is a watchdog.
It's almost a year later, Bwana Chikati. Nothing, that does not seem to be forthcoming.
My senior Kakuya is a member of parliament. He has never raised this issue on the floor of the House.
But there is a committee.
But
there is already a departmental committee.
This is how we work in parliament. When a certain committee in parliament is not working, either a member will have permission to sit, to appear before that committee and raise a question, raise an issue in the committee that this is your shortfall and you need to improve in this, or bring a substantive motion before the speaker in the chamber and say, look, this committee has not done ABCD. It must either improve or it should. My brother has never brought that to the...
From where you stand, do you feel the committee has done its job on this particular...
I think the parliament is doing, generally all the committees are doing wonderful work. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
The fact that now it has been, it has gotten to the UN level, should we expect any action from Kenya? Because now this covers the entire human rights issue in Kenya. According to the Standard, they say, especially after the new constitution, there are so many rights and freedoms provided for there. Yet this is the first time that we are seeing a deterioration in the same rights. Should this not be a discussion, at least emanating even from the UN report?
Idimuli, and I stated very clearly from the onset that it has to be clear, and Kenyans should understand. Because now, the head of state has owned this. He has committed himself in his statement that it will no longer happen, but it has happened. This report probably is the one which has moved him to make such a statement. And owning that, in fact, he is aware it has been happening, and he has assured Kenyans and the world that anybody who was abducted is no longer in cell, is already released back to the family. Then what should happen is that should this be left for free? Are they not known who has been abducting Kenyans? Are they not known who has been making extrajudicial killings haphazardly? And if they are known, and the head of state as the backstory to him, he ought now to make a declaration or a direction that any single unit which was doing that kind of works should be taken, action should be taken against it. Then, so that you clear to Kenyans and you also clear yourself as a head of state. But you can't just leave it that way and close it blanketly without giving Kenyans what next. Because I am saying already there is injury. The parents has lost their young ones. What do you do with them? Should you just leave it like that? There is a suffering of more than 3 months for those young ones under the custody. Should we just leave it that way? Then the head of state should also, and let me tell you, the best route to go, because there's a report of the UN, then the head of state should constitute a commission that now will give recommendations. And whatever is supposed to be done, then can be recommended by that commission.
Okay.
I have not read the Universal Periodic Review of the UN, which was submitted in May, this May. However, there are channels and protocols. For example, this review is not only done in Kenya. The periodic review is for every member country of the UN. Probably it's also in Uganda, it's also in Tanzania. But for us, once it's arrived in the right protocols of government, then Kenya will determine through the relevant units to respond to what we have done so far and what we have not done. Probably some of the issues they are commending in their report have already been addressed. For those ones which have not been addressed, probably we come to mechanisms of addressing, including if there will be necessity of forming a commission of inquiry to bring out really whatever happened, we can be able to do that. or to say this and that was addressed. But we've not received that review officially. Probably this, the Standard newspaper captured after the release, probably in New York or somewhere, but we've not received it officially.
Okay.
Yes.
But Edimoni,
Yes.
even without necessarily following to implement the UN report, the president has made a statement owning that he is aware it has been happening. By the nature of that statement, then he ought to put a commission in place to investigate all this saga. And that commission make recommendations, including to the actions that are supposed to be taken to those agencies, units which have been doing this. Otherwise, we cannot do it, and we cannot be able to say that something has been done. Well, if anything has been done, was it done under the carpet? Okay. Kenya should know.
This country is managed by different units and different departments. We are thinking that it is the president who is in charge of the police, the president who is in charge of...
but all backs stopped at him.
What we need to do is to look at which department in Kenya, which unit is not working effectively, and make recommendations to strengthen and build its capacity towards delivery of its programs. The moment we start stopping looking at the issues, and we just look at the president, everything President Ruto, all Kenya will come to a standstill. We need to narrow down on which department is not working effectively. When it comes to security, are the different arms of government making their efforts in terms of delivery of what is expected of them? These questions must be brought out, and we narrow down on which unit is not working well.
Therefore, Dimuri,
yes.
Then the need be every single unit has either a director or a manager, and therefore we have not heard from them. We have only heard from the head of state. Then it shows then it should not have this statement should not have been coming from the head of state. It should be coming from those departments. But since it's not coming, it's coming from the head of state. Then whom do you respond to?
Okay.
The owner of the statement.
The government spokesman was recently on media addressing some of these issues. We only need to be keen to listen on what steps the government is undertaking, because the government has an official spokesman. The spokesman of Kenya government is not the president of Kenya. The government spokesman is there, and he has been addressing some of these issues. But what we do, I'm also in the budget committee in Parliament. Each of these security arms of government receives the budget. The budget is for what? Is for carrying out and delivering activities that will improve the security of Kenyans and their safety, and to ensure that they go about their business. Okay. Each of them must account for their own role. It's not the president as such. The president is the overall, he must receive reports and assist them. But you know, if we keep on reducing the image and the stage of the president and everything saying Ruto, we are losing focus.
Okay, let's focus a bit on Parliament and go back to the genesis of this problem last year, which was a debate around the finance bill. Curiously, this conversation comes at a time when you are still at the same stage, budget making process. And I can see on the dailies today, the National Assembly has published a notice, an invitation to submit memoranda on the Finance Bill 2025. This is on page 8 of the Standard, and I think somewhere inside the Daily Nation as well. This was a problem, the Finance Bill 2024. A year down the line, we're back again processing the budgets. We've appeared to have swept everything else that happened under the carpet. Are you confident that this time round, parliamentarians or the National Assembly will handle this finance bill in a different way, probably through public participation or any other budget-making process?
Idemuli, I want to be very categorical in this case, because that's how it works. The Parliament has their powers within the law to do the needful. But the problem is micromanagement of executive, that whatever Parliament may decide to do, it can be overturned by the executive. And the end result then comes what we call executive has decided to be done. And that is the only problem that occurs. That in fact, the committee for budget committee, including the committee for finance, they may come up with clear good policies that actually are matching to what the public participation has illustrated. But they can be frustrated at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, the executive manipulate, micromanage the House and these committees. And therefore, what you may expect to be achieved by these committees, it might not see the light of the day.
Okay.
And this is the only problem we have. But if the executive can stop completely interfering with the independence of the National Assembly, things can work.
Yes, you had earlier mentioned about what Parliament has learned from the process last year and what should happen differently. Are you confident that we'll see things happening differently on this finance bill?
Part of the advert you are seeing on page 18 is on, to some extent, some amount of public participation, where we receive reports, where we digest those reports, where we make assessments and evaluate them, and then make some recommendations out of that. What we've done is to ensure that at each stage that Parliament is doing, the grassroots is informed, so that we have a congruence. We don't want to be seen as Parliament to be forcing things on people. We want to have a participatory approach, and that is what you are seeing. Parliament does its work in a very open environment, because all the documents we process are public documents, and anybody can be able to assess and make a decision out of them. What happened last year was simply a breakdown in communication. And there are so many people, we have the government and the opposition, and the opposition will take advantage of any loophole to ensure that, they maximize a gain out of that.
Will that not happen again this time around?
It's unfortunate if it happens, because we are doing our work well. My brother being there and included, we are doing it very well and perfectly. I don't see any problem in what we are doing.
The fact that the protesters marched to Parliament last year
Yes.
was a show of lack of confidence in how the House was conducting itself in the finance bill. Do you think that has changed this year?
We've changed radically. You can see the adverts.
I'm talking about the public confidence from the side of the public. Do you feel that they see Parliament in a different light?
Creating public confidence requires a time frame, okay? Remember, in the Mali, we have a new generation that is coming up, what we are calling the Gen Zs. They are coming up. They require constant information on each and every step that the government is working on delivering what. And so this is what we are trying to ensure. It is not an old generation that we are dealing with. And so we are all struggling to ensure that there is a delivery based on understanding and a common approach through networking, through advocacy, and through lobbying. Yes.
Gachagua, because the anger against Parliament was collectively against all parliamentarians. The Gen Zs or the protesters did not choose government-allied MPs or opposition-allied MPs. They were angry at the House of Parliament, the National Assembly, and the Senate. Do you think that has changed? Do you feel that public anger towards the Houses of Parliament has changed in any way a year later?
In fact, Dimoli, what is happening is that, in fact, if the National Assembly, or if the Parliament in general, including Senate, does exactly what the public desires to be done, because what is the sense of public participation? It is to hear from them. You hear from them and do what exactly they are directing you to do. Because they have just delegated power to you, just to represent them. But when you listen to them and you fail to do exactly what they have asked you to do, then you go and overturn and do other things there. What a confidence do you expect from the people? I am saying it's okay, because we does what the Lord has said. Go to the people. In a single financial year, there is what we call a budget committee. It has an obligation, duty to go around the country, seek views from the people through public participation, so that any single project that might be left by the budget can be inserted to that budget of that financial. And there is money purposely for that. Anything that the public says in a public hearing, that in this budget, this we have not approved, this we have not approved, this we have not approved. This is people. And if it's a government of the people, you should hear and implement what the people are saying. But I have just said here that the problem is not with the National Assembly, but the problem of the National Assembly is to allow itself to be overridden by the executive. This is where the problem is. Yes. Because I've been a member of budget for long. I served in the budget for more than 10 years, and I know what happens. You does your everything, but the chairman is being invited to State House, and you have left everything in order. But you, in the morning, you're finding strange things. Strange things being hyped from here and there. This should not be the case, and anything that actually under the abrogation of the National Assembly or Parliament should be independent. And the executive, if it does want to do anything, it must persuade the National Assembly to go their way, but not to force things to the people.
Are you confident that this public participation will be any better? Because the complaints were, as he says, you listen to members of the public, but you do nothing about whatever they say.
First and foremost, public participation is captured by the laws of Kenya. It is a must that we carry out. At no time, after I came to Parliament and before, at no time has Parliament passed any of its activities, any of its projects, budgets, without public participation.
But is it simply a formality, or is it consequential so that people, whatever the views they express, are taken into account?
Now, this is what we do. I have participated in public participation myself. We may collect the needs and the requirements of the people at the grassroots. The amount allocated, the amount we generate, may not be able to address all the needs. And therefore, we rank and say, look, in such a county, from our ranking matrix, this and that can be given priority as against that, okay? Probably, I'm not saying I'm qualified to make this, but probably that is where we differ with the grassroots. I am not aware of any chairman, like I have been with two chairmen, Ndindi Nyoro and now Atandi. I'm not aware of any being summoned in State House or anywhere by the office to change the budget, because the budget we approve is what sees the goes through Parliament, and therefore it is approved as such. So I'm not aware.
Right.
I can confirm. I've been a chair of a committee, and I know what it happens. You have submitted, presented your departmental budget, and very strange, you realize when the budget is stepping to the floor of the House, you left a particular department with 3 billion. They are hyped, it's only $1 billion remaining. 2 billion are taken to another ministry, haphazardly, even without consulting that departmental committee. It is long, and the manner it's being handled, it's long, and it cannot be done without the authority of that chairman of budget committee. It is done because the chairman at a stage is being invited. But in fact, when such a meeting occurs, you should also involve that departmental committee of that particular department that you're having money from, so that they can also be in the page.
Okay.
Yes.
Budget proposals are all approved by Parliament. And when they come to Parliament, they are tabulated. There is a lot of debate. I request that some of these things, we raise them on the floor of the House and say, we've noted a mistake. At the budgeting level, this was approved. Okay, at the presentation to the floor of the House, it has been removed. And therefore, what happened? So that the chair and the members of the budget committee can be able to justify on the floor of the House. You see, because when we come here to present that kind of thing, it is helpless. But I suggest that because my senior is also a member of Parliament, this year, as we tabulate this June and bring the proposals on the floor of the House, he should be able to tell us which item has passed through the budget level, but at the Parliament level, in between budget proposals and presentation to the floor of the House, it has been removed, so that we can be able to see who has removed it and where there are faults. Because if it's brought on the floor of the House, it will enable us to identify where the mistakes are and make corrections.
Yes, indeed. On page 8 and indeed also inside the Daily Nation.
And also, as I close, note that the Parliament depends on these, what we call numbers. When the numbers are against a particular issue and they are being whipped to go a particular direction, you may raise an issue, because I've raised alarms. But let me tell you, numbers carries the day.
Right.
Because they dictate.
Right. So finally, the National Assembly has paid for a notice, an invitation for Kenyans to submit memoranda on the Finance Bill 2025. Yes, Finance Bill is back. And you should do this. Any written memoranda on the bill should indicate the name of the person or organization submitting and their contact details, and should be hand-delivered to the office of the clerk, first floor, Main Parliament Buildings, Nairobi, or emailed to cna@parliament.go.ke and Finance Committee at parliament.go.ke to be received on or before Tuesday, 27th of this month by 5 p.m. Yes. You are duly informed. It is there, Finance Bill 2025. The conversation has officially started. Gentlemen, I want us to move to another discussion that has equally been controversial, and that is the reconstitution of the IEBC. A lot has been said about the names that have been submitted to the National Assembly for vetting and onward approval. It is part of the issues we've covered here at TV47, the jitter surrounding the reconstitution of the IEBC. Let's watch that story.
The Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims has urged the National Assembly to expedite the process of approving the nominees to reconstitute the Electoral Commission. The council stated that delays in the process will affect upcoming by-elections as well as the schedule for the next general election.
We are therefore confident that the National Assembly will add the much-needed extra layer of vetting and approval, the product of which will be a team that earns the trust and confidence of the people of Kenya to manage their elections, which are very key to our young but enduring democracy.
President William Ruto nominated Erastus Edang Ethekon as the Commission's chair and 6 others to serve as commissioners. However, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka has challenged the list, claiming that the opposition was not involved, a view that has been taken by a section of members of parliament.
Angalia wale watu ambao wamechaguliwa kwa njia nyingine ile wana uhusiano na Rais Ruto. Wakikazi, wakibiashara, wakifamilia, wakimambo ya tofauti. Kusema tu kweli, tumechezewa, tena tumerudi pahali tulikuwa. This is rigging of elections in advance.
Kalonzo Musyoka has also been criticized for opposing the nomination of IEBC commissioners. Women leaders allied to the Kenya Kwanza government stated that the selection panel had everything it needed to form the best team to lead the IEBC.
The selection panel is not only qualified, but they did an amazing job, and we finally have proposed chairman and proposed members of the commission. We want to ask the complainers, perennial complainers, to stop complaining and go to the ground.
Tumengoja for the last 2 years, almost 3. Na sasa IEBC imeenda through the processes, all the processes. Na tumeanza kusikia watu wakisema hati haikwenda the right procedure.
The IEBC commissioners will be vetted by the National Assembly before being approved.
Yes, of course, the process is now before the National Assembly for vetting and honored approval of the names. But outside here, there are a lot of conversations about whether the process of getting to where we are today has been proper. Bwana Chikati, the issue has been that the IEBC, probably even more than the National Assembly, has suffered a serious dent in public confidence. And this is not just unique to this particular commission this time round. Successive commissions, even from ECK, IIEC, and now IEBC, have always had questions around them. Are you confident that the process in selecting this new commission right now managed to counter that issue, because questions are already being raised?
Maybe, and perhaps the most important aspect of the IEBC selection process, it was the most open process. Every day on the TV, the interviews were done. There's nothing hidden. There's a problem with Kenyans. When something has taken place is when they come to raise the issues. The IEBC process has taken months to reach where it has reached, okay? Probably what I see is that Kenyans wanted a chairman who has some profile, some network, some backing of political people, because there were two that were being fronted, Nyachai and Anna Amadi, people who have had some positions in Kenya, people who are well known. The president took one of the best decisions. Select Erastus Ethekon, who is very little known, whom you will take years to establish networks with, and whom you will take probably time to corrupt. He is the most qualified, and that is the best thing that the president can do for this country. So to me, the process was very, very clean, and everybody followed it.
Yet there was an issue about the inclusion of 6 names to the final shortlist that had not been part of the shortlisted candidates who are published in the dailies by the selection panel. Don't you think that that in itself, and one of them who was not on the initial shortlist, ended up in the final list?
The chairman of IEBC announced very well and said there was an error in publishing the names. 6 were left out, and they were going to sue the IEBC because they had been shortlisted. It's only that they were not published, and then they followed quickly to make sure that they were published. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gakuya, we've had Kalonzo Musyoka talking about the need to have more discussions with politicians. For the president to make the final decision. Should that be the way? We understand that the process is after the selection panel does its job, gives names to the president, and he forwards the same to parliament. Why the need to have any further discussion with political parties at this point?
Idimuri, what I say is that Kenya has a tradition. You have witnessed Kenya that we have always been moving to an election. And after every single election, then there has been always issues where people still want to negotiate with the government and become part of the government. Then the essence of that election becomes or seems to have no value, because you should either, after an election, concede and say, yes, I was not lucky, I didn't win, and completely allow the winner to take the mantle and move the country forward. But you see, people move to what we call streets. Start bringing dramas so that actually they can be also be incorporated to those to that government. And we have seen hardships. In fact, I remember during Moi, we had even what we call IPPG. Mm-hmm. And the essence of this is that there is a law already in place, but there's a clamor outside. And to remove that clamor, then I believe that is the area Kalonzo Musyoka is coming in. That even though we have been given hands to nominate the panelists of that panel committee, at the tail end, probably let us share a word with the head of state before he makes his final shot. But personally, unless then there is a gray area like this one we are seeing here, where Nuru has become a beneficiary of being slotted, but he was not in the first list. Then the question comes, arises that, as my panelist is telling us, there was an anomaly. I assume it was not, because how can you make such anomaly? I don't believe it was, and what I believe is that orders came from somewhere that list is not complete unless you add this list of this number of names to that particular list purposely to find a room for somebody to be picked who was not part of the first list. That's only where the gray area comes in. And if there was no this addition, I believe the panel was quite okay, because the panel was not representing a single political party, and it was nominated from various organizations. And therefore, we believe if there is any issue, the representative of those organizations were the one to raise alarm, because they were the ones sitting in that panel. If there was anything that actually was not clear, they should tell their masters what went, whether there was anything that went under the carpet. But if everything went over the table, until the last minute, and nominations were done in a consensus mood of that panel. I don't think there's any mistake. The only mistake is this added 6 number of nominees who, out of them, one of them found their way to that first list. Okay. And that is where the gray area comes and questions comes in. Yes. Why can we do such a mistake in the first place?
The concern is that we are very short of time on this IEBC issue. But should we just sweep any anomaly under the rug because of time and say, okay, fine, we don't have time to do this, let's just go?
Indemnity, why should someone trust the doubting Thomas rather than the chairman? And not trust the chairman. The chairman of IEBC selection panel has said very well that these 6 were left out. And therefore it is necessary.
Why in the first place?
Yes. Now,
why in the first place?
If there was any malice or someone's intention to insert the 6, why were those 6 why did they not appear in the final list? Why were they not selected, all the 6? Okay?
But at least one. Maybe
but the 6 was to cover that one.
I mean,
yes,
that's very interesting.
Yes,
because there's a lot of doubts on that. Okay,
because there's no way they could cite one name.
Yes,
and that's why the 6 were brought in.
That one was incorporated, is qualified. It is not that it was anyone wanted to rake him in. Why should you feel? You see, you are also destroying his image even before he starts his work. Okay. He is an honest person.
Of course.
He
passes through a window, not through the door.
Okay. And therefore, we should not try and jeopardize before even he starts to work. We should give him a room. He may be one of the best IEBC commissioners.
Are you saying that issue should not be scrutinized further?
If there is any anomaly, then let it be scrutinized. It can even be brought to Parliament. Yes.
The issue is, and I raised the concern, and this is a concern shared by many people, that there's very little time. But is time constraints enough for us to say, let's not ask many questions, let's just move on fast? Should that be the way we approach this? Gachagua.
In fact, Idimoni, whether we are time-barred or not, we cannot push large things so that actually we are seen to have complied. We comply, but there is no way that you can push the scrutiny to go on haphazard manner because we are late. Because this country was not migrated, that actually it has come back. We were here, and the delays, we know them, and we cannot stand here to say what were the delays, but the delays were there. But we must make sure that the process is seen free and fair to the end. And remember, Idimuli, in this particular issue of IBC, it means life and death. Because this is where, critically, you have what you call people's confidence. Because Kenyans wakes up every single election to vote somebody in. And they want to believe that after they do their work, the overturns comes at the IBC level, not at the voting level. And therefore, they need that confidence that are we still going to see another orchestration like Ibuito's during his tenure? Are we going to witness another saga like the one we witnessed in last election, where 4 commissioners separated themselves from the rest of the 3? Or are we, where are we? Kenyans want to see a free and fair process. And that's why the question comes. Where is this Nuru coming from? Why is he coming through the window? Because who can convince Kenyans that the 6 were left? How are they left? How can
to avoid?
How can you gazette a list of members, leaving out 6 number? How? What an anomaly is that? If it was one name, one can understand. Okay. How can you live? It's not, how?
To avoid rumors, there are questions which the oppositions need to ask. 1, are there any illegalities at any stage in the IEBC selection process? If there were, who among these people, including my senior Gachagua here, went to court to say there is an illegality here? Someone has found himself illegally in the list, and it is illegal. Why should they wait when the process is over and they start crying, tarnishing the name of a very clean process, which has come up to the end? And they are doing it right at the tail end of the process. What will help them? When there were legal process at any stage, the IEBC selection process did not take one day. It took some time that will enable someone to say, there is a fault here, fault line we've seen, let us go to the courts of law, stop until we get some light before we proceed.
Do you think that they could still use that route at this
They
point?
can't be able to do that.
Do you feel that it's an intention to, in a way, delay the process of reconstituting the IEBC?
Yes, from what my senior here is talking, he has an intention to delay the process because they have seen the defeat.
Right.
Yes.
First and foremost, let us agree, Idimoli, that we would not want to see a botched process. And that's what we are saying. We want to see a clear and clear. As my brother is agitating that actually people could have raised alarm. The alarm was raised just on the spot when these names appeared. And the alarm was raised. And if somebody was sincere enough, a statement could have been given to clear that process. Why? Have we already settled and advertised the list? And then from nowhere, then another foreign list of 6 appears. And out of the 6, then you find a beneficiary. What a future situation is that? You cannot convince me that there was no game to allow Nuru to be part of this particular panel.
The reason why most of our elections are challenged at the Supreme Court, especially the presidential election, is because of a lack of trust in the IEBC.
Yes.
There's a very serious trust deficit on the part of the Commission. Would it be right to approach the next general election with questions being raised about how this IEBC was put in place? Would it be right as Kenyans for us to do that?
Yeah, but what we need to consider now is were the relevant processes followed in establishing the IEBC? To me, they were followed. Remember, politics in Kenya, as one of the best democracies in Africa, is very hot. It's very hot. It is accompanied with a lot of mistrust, which to some extent is justified, because everybody wants to be on that table, and someone wants to have someone whom he knows in the IEBC. In the refereeing stage, that is where the problem is. The problem is not that this IEBC is wrong. The problem is we want people whom we know to be there as referees, to watch our side, so that when the game is on, they can give us a pass, and when we are wrong, they can say continue. There is no red card even when we make mistakes. That is what the opposition wants. Okay, they are saying. In other words, they are saying that we are supposed to be the ones selecting. Kalonzo has been saying we need now to consult each other on who should be there, on how it should sit, and so on. Indirectly, what are they saying? That give us a role to play in the selection. It is not that the panel is bad. It is not that the selected team is bad. It's only that the opposition wants to have people they know in that, so that when they are refereeing, they can do the game towards them.
We've done that before through the IPPG that Gachagua mentioned, the inter-parties parliamentary group, where political parties were really involved in the selection of the final IEBC. Do you think that kind of route is better to quell all this upheaval among political parties on the selection?
From what my senior Gachagua is saying, he thinks it's right. To me, the process that was followed recently is the right process. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I want to close this, Idimudi, by saying, first and foremost, the opposition is not in fear of any defeat. Otherwise, we will defeat Ruto 10-0 with reasonable numbers. And therefore, we are not in any fear. Only what we are fearing is interruption of the process. And that's what we are saying. We are not even agitating to have our brothers and sisters in that commission. But what we need is free and fair process. And our big question is, if we find any question mark, you must state it as it is. Yep. And that's what we are asking, where did the Nuru came from?
All right. Allow us to switch gears and talk about politics now. And you look at some of the front pages today. Yes, they start talking about grand rematch, Matiang'i being in between President William Ruto and his former boss, President Uhuru Kenyatta. On Taifa Leo, they talk about vijana, mwaka 2027 itakuwaje, the formation of a youth alliance there. But also we see that on the front page of the Daily Nation, the former deputy president is back on the front pages. Blow to Gashagua as allies abandon him. It's also part of the stories that we feature here on TV47. Gachagua resigning from the UDA party in readiness to form his new party this week. Let's watch that story.
Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has officially resigned from the United Democratic Alliance UDA party, saying the party's manifesto was a lie. And no nation can be built on a litany of lies. In his letter addressed to his former party, Gachagua noted that he had made a decision in knowledge of the ideals of the party they believed in. And so are millions of Kenyans, but now has turned out as the most dangerous political moment for the people and the Republic of Kenya, in retrogressive philosophy of unfit class to govern our nation. The former DP added that UDA has exhausted and wasted a Kenyan moment to take off economically, socially and politically. The statement read in part, it will be recalled that while affirming the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, our presidential candidate then in 2022 said, "It is my firm conviction that the unity, stability and prosperity of our country lies not in the greatness of men, but in the strength of our institutions." As a party and millions of Kenyans, we believed and trusted in him and this statement. It was a lie. No nation can be built on a litany of lies. End of the statement.
It is devolved.
At the same time, the former DP accused the Kenya Kwanza government of failing to implement the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. However, in November last year, during the swearing-in of Professor Kithure Kindiki, the party chairperson Cecilia Mbarire affirmed that Gachagua would exit the party at his own volition, despite being replaced by Kindiki as the deputy party leader. Gachagua is set to launch his political vehicle later in the week. Mike Kagwango, TV 47, Nairobi.
A lot has happened in the last few days to catapult the former deputy president back on the front pages. Of course, what happened on Friday last week with the pronouncement by the Court of Appeal that part of the process for the impeachment of the deputy president, especially in particular the empanelment of a bench of judges to hear some of the issues, was not done correctly. Now that appears to have emboldened the former deputy president, who is expected to form his party later this week or unveil his party later this week. Now we see he is officially moved from the UDA party, but the front page of the Daily Nation, Bwana Gakuya, talks about his allies abandoning him, and they mentioned quite a number of MPs from the Mount Kenya region who did not vote yes for the impeachment, but were now said to have abandoned him. I don't know, because you as known as one of the allies of the former deputy president, is this a fact? I know they've mentioned Gathoni wa Mushomba, they mentioned here Kandara MP Shege Njuguna, they mentioned others, Runyenje's MP Eric Mushangi, Embu Woman Representative Njoki Njero, and Kieni MP Wainaina Chieni. These are just some of the people mentioned who are allies of the former deputy president and now are out.
Let us agree on one thing, Idimoli, that we are working with what we call a state, which is well known on its good games of what we call state capture. And first and foremost, Kenny was never part of us. But he even never came to vote. What he did is he managed himself, and somehow he was seen on host ward during that particular day. But he never supported Gachagua in any way. Number two is Mushangi. Mushangi never stood firm with Gachagua. And that's why when we lost our chairman's position, he was only switched from a chair of Reba to another chair. So he's never been part of us in the bottom of his heart. And I can tell you, there are those members of parliament who cannot stand firm on their feet and stand for a cause because of particular reasons that I will not be able to talk here. But also, I would like to tell you, anybody who is just simple, who cannot stronger stand with his feet, the government will use money to woo. And I can tell you, money will be like anything else. If money was used to purge Gashagua with more than 280 turnout of members of parliament, I can tell you, those of simple hearts will be wooed by cash and they will be they will move away. But I will tell you, as much as Wambogo is concerned, remember Wambogo was not...
talking about Mr. Gojiri Wambogo.
Yes, he's not a member of this current parliament, and they can have their small issues with Gashagua, which is personal. I don't want to engage in that. Wamushomba, he's been mentioned. I am also sure that, in fact, he has a political party, and he wanted the boss to take that political party, and probably by the nature of their disagreement can also be an issue. I don't want to go beyond that. I can also ascertain that anybody else, because we have also a member for Kangema, Kihongi, who was a strong supporter of Gashagua, but due to his concerns of Mau Mau roads, he opted to line with the government so that he can also get those developments. In short, I am saying we are dealing with a state which is known for state capture. So it will do everything to manipulate the Gachagua team. But this does not mean there's any injury. None. So the team is still firm and strong. And the few members mentioned, including member for Kandara, he never a single day been part of our crew. He has never been our meeting, not a single day. That woman for Embu, she has never been part of our meeting, not a single day. Right. Yes, those are the ordinary people who wanted to carry what we call the people's confidence by the time of voting. But they never been part of Gashagua at all.
Okay, this story talks about a big blow to Gashagua. But on Friday, Gashagua seemed to have received a shot in the arm with that pronouncement by the courts. The fact that now he's back on the front pages means a lot, even politically, for the Kenya Kwanza administration. After the impeachment last year, many would have hoped that he would fizzle out from the political scene. Do you see, like, some of these happenings, recent happenings, in particular what happened in court, that it would appear to be lionizing Gashagua even more?
Yes. First of all, the former DP is a classmate at the University of Nairobi, and we graduated the same day in 1989. And I've had a long journey with him, and I know him to some extent. But this is my observation. Any marriage formed on quicksand was bound to fail. Gachagua and his team is only a matter of time, and they will start knowing him, probably his expectations from them, their obligations to him. Once they are not agreeing, then there is a lot of breakdown in terms of communication and in terms of mistrust. And therefore, I expected that this was just to take some little time. The problem I have with Gachagua is his attempt as the deputy president to balkanize the country. That is not acceptable at all. Kenya is one. Each of us is a nationalist, and we must. What is happening in Kikuyu land must happen in Turkana, in Taita Taveta, and in Western, in any part of the country, so that we move as one. And that is where we differed. Probably one of the things they are differing, you see, once you want to balkanize the region, you are also going to balkanize even the villages. And once a leader feels like he's being excluded from planning about what goes on in the constituency at what level, people are going to move out. You cannot tell me that people like Wamchomba can be bought by anybody else. No. That is wrong. These are leaders in their own right. These are leaders in their own, in terms of decision making. They can make their own decisions and so on. And therefore, they have made decisions unseen. that we may be in partnership with a wrong person, and therefore we are going to come out. So with me, whether with the court ruling, recent court ruling or not, Gashagua is going to have a very little impact in this country. Yes.
Coming only a week, because we do expect, according to what we're hearing, that he is going to unveil his party of choice probably this week. This is not the best time to have this kind of headlines. The fact that many people who are known to be his allies are moving out or are publicly no longer talking the same voice with him. Because during the impeachment, there were claims that by many members of parliament that this deputy president then was very abrasive, that he acted like a bully. And these were words mentioned inside parliament. Could this be happening again this time around?
Because I've been a very close member and a friend of Gashagua, I would say that, in fact, we have not been fair to him at all. And we have been misjudging him. And it is wrong, because probably God created Gashagua with his face. And you cannot judge somebody by his face. But inside his heart, he's a very good man who takes time to discuss and consult. And I can tell you for sure, any moment, because I would tell you that, in fact, I was a good friend of William Ruto. Can you ask me what made me to leave the stage? There are reasons that moved me from that particular close friend of mine. And I took a decision that I would take another journey on a different course. And I can tell you for sure, whether we would like to mudslide Gashagua or not, Gashagua will still emerge as strong as yesterday and the day before yesterday. And in this case, I would like to tell you something. At some point, it is not Gashagua will go to look for these members any longer. They will be helter-skelter looking for him. Because as we speak, and I can tell you definitely Idimuli, who is with the people? And in Mulima, go do your own research. Because you are a media researcher. Do your own research. You don't require, Gashagua does not require you. If you want to quit. It's at your own peril.
He does not need these members at this point.
I can tell you for sure, listen Idimuli. Gashagua has thousands and thousands of new aspirants looking to be engaged in his party. So whether you want to quit, somebody else will replace you. And that's the case. And that's how politics works. But I can tell you for sure, I do not want to be here to say that there is that kind of disconnect. And I would only say that, in fact, there are a number of members that are mentioned there who has never been part of Gashagua crew. And they are mentioned in that. So that particular paper deliberately want to injure Gashagua's new entry of the party. But this will not injure him anywhere. Because this is just a mere propaganda. Because I have mentioned you various number of members of parliament who have been mentioned there. But they have never been our sitting, not a single day. Yes, I can sympathize with Mzee Mushamba, who has been a vigorous fighter with us. And I can tell you for sure, even today, they are in good discussion, good consultation with Gashagua. It's only that he's not appearing to his meetings, for reasons I can't tell for now.
Okay.
Yes.
You see, look at the profile of the people mentioned in the nation. You see that they have already differed with Gashagua and they are charting their own way. Look at, for example, Eric Mshangi, Embu Woman Representative Njoki Njeru, and then Chege Njuguna, Gadhoni wa Mchomba. About these are very strong people that you cannot just brush aside and say, let them go, they will look for someone. These are people you need to work with. The fact that they are not working right now in good terms with Gashagua sends a very good signal about who the leader that was claiming to be the leader of Mount Kenya is. Okay? This also informs us of why probably they could not work with President Ruto. It only shows that the Gashagua cannot work with someone for a very long time. Once you start knowing his weaknesses, then you become an enemy. That is what I know.
Right. And let me say something. You know, it is very hard for you to serve two masters. You want to have Ruto, and at the same time you want to serve Gashagua. And the middle, you get lost. So I am very glad that Mushangi took a position to be with Ruto. The member for Women for Embu took a decision to work with Ruto. If member of Kandara, I can't judge him because I have not seen him. But in most of the time, he has been appearing in our meeting, and I have not seen a discredit. But I am only saying I have only one single case of Muthoni Muchomba, of which was a very formidable member and a close ally of Gashagua. That's only a member that I would say Gashagua worked for it.
Does that concern you? Because now we see the number of parties within the Mount Kenya region is increasing. Now you talk about Muthoni Muchomba forming her own party ahead.
That party was even there before Gachagua looked for his own party.
Now he's forming his own party. There's still Jubilee Party, which was a big party in that region. Doesn't that present a problem?
But I can tell you, Idimuli, this take it home. I can tell you, even in any single election, we had a UDA election last time. How many percent do you think were in the central region? There were more than 20 of them. That does not mean any single party coming in because you cannot demonize those parties. What you need to do is to connect with the people so that people can join you. And let us agree. It is democracy. You have a religion where every single church has a freedom to have a church. And this does not mean because you belong to Catholic, you are an enemy of VCK. That does not occur. In politics, I can tell you for sure, we'll still be having Jubilee in Central Region. We'll still be having Martha Karwa's party. And she's working with Gashagua. But what will happen at the end, probably you agree, let us feel the popular vote of the president. But they are down. Let every party look for his strength, which is okay, and that's democracy.
Should we expect any exodus from UDA now that Rigathi Gachagua has officially resigned following that impeachment? Very many of you are still in UDA, but your hearts are away. Should we expect an exodus towards Rigathi Gachagua's new...
What I am sure that, in fact, few may opt to resign and cross, but no, I'm not part of that. Yes.
You will not be joining...
No. What I can assure you, UDA is not my party in the coming election, but it's my party for now, to the end of the term.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Bonachi.
Maybe he's my senior. I'm the Secretary General of Ford Kenya, and I want to invite him to join just in case. And when he comes to Ford Kenya, we are in the Kenya Kwanza, where UDA is also there. So he can be able to join.
There was also a push for your party to fold and join UDA. Do you think that we saw ANC do the same?
He prayed wise.
Ford Kenya is not folding. We've stated before that the only thing we can do is build our capacity, open more our networks, and do more lobbying and bring in more people, especially the young ones, to join the party. But we are not folding. That's why I'm inviting my brother Kakuya here, who is not going to be in UDA in future, to consider vying on Ford Kenya so that we can have influence in Embakasi.
I'll give each of you about 3 minutes for your final comments. Start
Yes.
with you, Bwana Gakuya.
Yeah, Idimori, let me summarize by saying corrections are here to stay. In case you are not seeing good fruits from the correction you are in, and realize that in fact there is a storm coming, it is also our doors are not closed. So I will still wish my good father to join the fraternity who will take power in the next election. And by summarizing, let me say, we would like to see the head of state, and I will just mention because the back sort of team, considering to have a commission so that the commission can be able to investigate and give us a clear report on extrajudicial killings and abduction so that Kenyans can get cleared and his statement yesterday can be taken serious.
Okay. Thank you, Bwana Gakuya.
In my view on IEBC, I want to repeat and say that the process, according to me, was a clean process. It was advertised, it was on media, and if there was anyone who felt that there was something wrong during the process, they should have gone to court and stopped the process until they find the clarity before the process moves forward. So it was clear. We have the right chairman in IBC, let us support him. That is number one. Number two, The president is just like any other human being, like you and me. He needs a peace of mind in order for him to deliver on his work. If there is everything happening in Kenya, we point a finger to the president, including the work of the departments. Right now, I was talking about the units of government, the police, the IPOA. What are they doing? We give them budgets. So let us not transfer all the law to the president as if we know he's in charge of police, in charge of agriculture. They are ministers. So we also need to direct their questions to them because they receive budgets to work. Finally, on extrajudicial killings, I state that, we need specific reports. Kenya has not received officially the UN report on abductions. Once we receive and then we recommend, we make answers because we are members of the UN. And then we can be able to respond accordingly.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Indeed, the headlines are reading this way. I think the most striking is on the front page of the Standard: repressive regime. Talking about state brutality, and they're basing this on the UN reports, which, interestingly, we are yet to discuss here in Kenya. The enemy within, that's the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Hundreds of KRA workers moved in 30 billion shilling purge. Fraud purge, that's the Business Daily, a grand rematch on the Star today, pitting the two heads of state, the fourth and the fifth, with Fred Matiang'i in between. I think the only other headline is Kenya's top threat, basing it on NIS Director General Nurdin Haji appearance before Parliamentary Committee. Na Taifa Leo wanasema vijana mwaka 2027 itakuwaje? Hata sisi hatujui. Thank you so much, Dr. John Chikati, MP Tongaren, and James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, for your time at TV47 and for a very vibrant debate this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
After the break, we talk about managing debt. Anodida will be driving that conversation. Do stand by for that. My name is Fred Indemuli. Good morning.